So, hey, what's up, everybody? I am on with uh, Julie Roginsky. Hopefully, I got that right.
Very good.
And so, I've been waiting to get her on live for like ever and a day. I love the pieces she writes for the Daily Banter. And your channel is Salty Politics, right?
You got it. Yep.
Yeah,
Good to be with you.
yeah. And so she's in New York. I'm excited to talk to her today because what did something happen in New York? Was there a big deal with the Democrats? Like,
It's a,
I don't
yeah.
know.
It's a little election that took place yesterday that kind of shook up everything, and I think has ramifications not just here in New York, but for everybody, Democrats and Republicans, really around the country. But
There was,
New York sent an interesting message yesterday, I thought.
yeah, you had a great piece that dropped today. And I was like, man, I was like, I want to talk to her. She gets it. I used to be in rural Ruby Red, East Tennessee, and Tennessee's first district. It was during the second election for Obama. And so my sort of thing with Democratic politics is I don't think that they talk in strong enough language. They don't they don't stand on principles too much, right? So a lot of it is this gameplay kind of stuff where it's like, well, we got to do this and we got to worry about the parliamentarian, we got to worry about this. And one thing that struck me about this race is and I'm probably going to butcher his, is it Mamdani? Did I
Mom,
get that
you know what? It's interesting that you say that because none of us know how to pronounce his name. He really came out of nowhere. It's
right?
mom. I have to convince myself. I think it's Mom Donnie. Mom Donnie.
Okay, Mamdani. And
Right.
I saw a little bit, like, just clips of the debates he had with Cuomo. Because first of all, it with the fact that we put up Andrew Cuomo as the establishment candidate was just a horror show. Like, it's but it the what so a lot of the stuff that he was saying really was that kind of strong, definitive, "Hey, these are problems. We need to have solutions for them. Here's what I wanna do." Kinda talk through that a little bit about, why do you think that do you think the Democrats need to do this more? And in what ways, like, did you see that did make him sort of successful in this primary?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things that I thought were interesting about him. So first and foremost, he comes across as the super authentic guy. And
Mm,
I've been in politics. I've run campaigns for 30 years, and I can tell you more than ever, especially because of the rise of social media, especially because of things like Substack and TikTok and Instagram and all these, everybody's got a camera. You could spot the bullshit really quickly. I mean, it used to be that consultants like me would be hired to kind of package you and cut TV ads, and we test these TV ads to see what voters like best, and it would take weeks, if not months, to figure it out. Now it's every guy with a cell phone has the ability, or a woman with a cell phone has the ability to just cut an ad themselves within 2 seconds and have it go viral. And authenticity really matters as a result. And Mamdani came across as this super authentic guy. The other thing that he did, and Cuomo comes across as Andrew Cuomo, who
right,
has been around for 1,000 years, bitter, nasty, angry, and was pushed out of office not so long ago for good reason. The
right.
second thing I think he did that was very smart is he ran on an affordability message that was really populist. I mean, there's not much difference as much as Trump is sitting there talking about what a communist he is. There's not much difference between Mamdani's message and Trump's in the sense that Mamdani was like, "Hey man, I'm going to give you everything you want. You want free childcare? You got it. You want free buses? You got it. You want free, everything, you got it." And much like Trump was like, no taxes on tips, and we're going to, happy days are here. Things that I think appeal to people on a really visceral basis because they can relate to it. It's not these 5-point plans about how I'm going to lower the child tax, credit, or I'm going to whatever it's going to be. It is very tangible. I'm going to allow you to ride the bus for free. Now, there's no way in hell the city of New York can afford to have free buses. And by the way, that comes from the state and not from him. So he's going to have to go begging to Albany. And promise you, there's no way that legislators outside New York City are going to spend money on this. But it sounds good. And free childcare, I can get behind that, right? I mean, I have a 13-year-old now, but back when I was raising him in New York, it was really expensive before
Mm,
he started school to put him in daycare. So if somebody said to me free childcare, I'd be like, sign me up, right? Completely unrealistic. It is about $30,000 a year for childcare in
yeah.
New York. It's just not going to happen. But I mean, all of these things sound good. And in a city that is exorbitantly expensive, where the middle class is being driven out, where you see these insane rents and these insane prices to buy, the price of admission to live in New York is just astronomical. And
Mm,
it's, I've been living in New York on and off most of my life. It's gotten much worse. And so I understand why people can relate to that kind of message. And, so that was two. He was very specific. And he
mm,
made it kind of a joyful thing, like, where he basically said, "It doesn't have to be this hard to live in New York." Because if you live in New York, it's really tough. I mean, like, my husband and I kind of joke, we love living here, but it's not an easy place to live. It's just
no.
not, as you can imagine.
Mhm.
And, I think for him, he was like, "Listen, it shouldn't be this tough. It shouldn't be this difficult." And people can relate to that because nobody wants it to be this tough and this difficult. Sorry about your pieces falling out. So, that was a really good positive thing that he did. And the third thing I think that he did is he stuck it to the establishment. So I think the more the establishment came and supported Cuomo, whether it was Mike Bloomberg, who, is universally kind of acknowledged as probably the best mayor we've had,
Mm,
at least since Ed Koch. But a billionaire, right? A really rich guy who's out
mm,
of touch with what most people are going through. Bill Clinton, the borough presidents, Democratic borough presidents of every borough except, I believe, the Bronx, supported Cuomo. David Patterson, the former governor of New York, supported Cuomo. I mean, all of these establishment people supported Cuomo. The very same people, by the way, a lot of whom called on him to resign not so long ago for all of his sexual
right.
misconduct. The more they did that, I think the more people were like, you know what? This Democratic Party is not working for us. They're not fighting for us. Donald Trump is running roughshod over the Constitution. Donald Trump is taking us to war potentially without checking with anybody, Congress or anybody else. I mean, all of these norms that are being broken on a daily basis by Trump,
Mm,
these very same people are not pushing back on him. They're not standing up to him. Why should we follow them off a cliff when they're telling us to trust them on Andrew Cuomo when we've trusted them time and time and time again? And what has that resulted in? A uniform Republican Congress, a
mhm.
Republican in the White House, a supermajority on the Supreme Court, and the Republicans controlling most of the state houses in the country. I mean, for all those reasons, effectively, I think rank and file voters are just saying, we're not going to trust the establishment anymore. It's not working for us. They're not doing anything for us. And so, as a result of all of that, I think, plus, he had the perfect foil in Andrew Cuomo. People just, like this rehabilitation of disgraced politicians has got to stop.
Yes,
It's got
100%.
to stop.
I couldn't agree more. Like, you mean to tell me there's somebody you couldn't find that, would maybe be a little more moderate or a little more pragmatic? I think it was on The View recently that Joe Biden said this, when they talked about Kamala's loss and then him getting, basically dropping out, is he said that what we underestimated was just how people were coming out of the pandemic and how tough it was for a lot of people in the sense of like how much that had impacted them in a lot of ways. And so, in some ways it didn't really matter like because under normal circumstances, if you look at Biden's record, it's a pretty good record
It's a
for a
great
president.
record.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like one of the heartbreaking things like with Obama was, besides ACA and a few, like the Lilly Ledbetter Act and some things, back then that he did that were really good. Once, the Tea Party sort of swept in 2010, that was pretty much it. And when they made it their mission to stop every single thing that he could do, there wasn't really it was almost like a presidency that was sort of robbed from the country, right? It was stymied in a lot of ways. Whereas Biden managed to get through in a pretty tough Congress. Wasn't a lot like you didn't have much room to maneuver. And so he did a lot with what he had, but in a lot of ways, he got almost punished for it, you know? And I mean, even districts that benefited from him. So, like, I'm in, unfortunately, Lauren Boebert's district in the Colorado 4th, and she won that district by like 20 points. You know, she basically held the margin against, the candidate who was a good candidate that ran against him, but or ran against her. But Pueblo, which he actually did, where he shut up and touted the Infrastructure Act, where they were building, I think it was wind turbines. It was part of the green technology in Pueblo, Colorado, which has been hard hit. And they voted by 15 points for Trump. So like even that he didn't get really any thanks from these red districts. But it's interesting that in this day and age, you've got a guy that beat Cuomo that's basically in some ways doing this very Trumpian language, like, we're going to give you free buses, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that. And part of it is it's just like, yeah, I mean, because even Democratic leaders that, well, if they do the pragmatic dance, they don't deliver on half the stuff anyway. So you
Yeah,
might as
first of all, Biden's press shop and his comm shop was just the worst. I mean, he did not know how to take credit for anything. Anything.
no.
There's no reason why Biden couldn't have gone to Florida and gone to the Florida Keys and said, "You see this bridge that you guys have been begging for years to evacuate you in the event of a hurricane? I'm the one that's building this bridge. That's me." Like,
Yep.
slap his name on it, literally, slap his name on it. Have this little plaque, like, brought to you by President Joe Biden and the whatever. I mean, Trump would have done this in a heartbeat. He
Hmm.
takes credit for things he had nothing to do with. Biden had this allergy to taking credit for stuff. And when I think about the infrastructure bill and all of the programs and all of the infrastructure, and not just that, I mean, the Build Back Better, all of that, um,
Hmm.
the COVID relief funding, all of that money and all of the things that are being built that Trump will take credit for when they're completed, that are there purely because of Biden. You have Republican members of Congress taking credit for this stuff. They voted against it, but it's
Yep.
happening in their districts and they're taking credit for it. And the
Hmm.
Biden press shop was just awful. I mean, just the worst press shop. I just, as somebody who's been in this business for so long, I said it then, I will say till I die. It is so painful. And that's a problem. I mean, again, where we're talking about communication in this day and age, that's a problem. The second problem for Biden is he just wasn't capable, I think, physically by the end of his term to do this kind of stuff in the way that people expected.
Yeah.
And again, where I think you said Biden said that he didn't realize how much people were in pain with the pandemic, I would go further back. I would say that if you are a millennial,
Hmm.
what have you known most of your life?
Yeah.
9/11 happened. We go to war in Iraq where we get bogged down, a war that nobody can explain the purpose of. We get bogged down for decades. And in Afghanistan, right? So your whole life, you basically have been at war. Wars that you're not clear as to why they're happening or continue to happen for as long as they have. You were lied into a war in Iraq. Then, coming out of that, you have the financial crisis.
Yeah.
And suddenly, you see your parents or maybe even you losing all your money. And the house that you thought was worth something, you're underwater on. And people are literally starving. And yet you're seeing these really rich banks and billionaires get bailed out because they're too big to fail. And you're seeing that very clearly that you are getting screwed, despite the fact that you had nothing to do with this, and the people that caused this are getting bailouts. And
Hmm.
the big fault of Barack Obama to me that I will insist was the biggest mistake of his administration was not throwing a hostage on the tarmac and not holding somebody on Wall Street accountable.
Yep.
Somebody needed to go to prison. And I get it. And I get the whole notion of if we did that, then Wall Street would rebel and the stocks would collapse and the economy, blah, blah, blah. Like I get all that. But somebody needed to be held accountable for political reasons, if nothing else. And that didn't happen. And so they see that, you could blame Bush all you want, but Obama didn't hold them accountable either.
Yep.
And you don't see that income inequality really shrinking under Obama. And what you see is constantly being told that you just have to suck it up and take it and take it and take it. And then, of course, Trump comes in and COVID happens, and the rest is history. So, really, for the past almost 25 years,
Mm,
we've had this crisis after crisis after crisis that has resulted in regular folks being in pain
mhm,
and really rich people getting a break, and not just a break, but sometimes coming out of it ahead of where they started. And so I think from that perspective, it's no surprise that somebody like a Mamdani, excuse me, comes in and does well. It's no surprise that AOC a few years ago
yeah,
dethroned Joe Crowley, the number 3 person in the House.
mhm,
And what the Democrats are going through right now is a kind of a tea party of its own, I think.
I hope so.
For that reason,
Yeah,
because the establishment isn't doing anything. I mean, listen, I am as establishment as it gets. I have worked for, you name it, establishment politician, I have probably done their campaign. But I'm at the point now where I'm ready to burn it all down because I look at Chuck Schumer, my senator, and I look at Hakeem Jeffries,
mhm,
who is from my state, and
yeah,
I'm thinking, you guys are from Brooklyn. Like, where's the Brooklyn? Where's the fight?
right.
Where is it? Stop with the sternly worded letters. Stop with the whole "I'll get back to you," or stop with the whole "we're going to hold a hearing" or "we're going to do a floor speech." Like, fight, do something. And they're
Yes,
not fighters. They're not fighters. And I think that's what Democrats are looking for right now. They're looking for somebody to fight for them.
yes, and I remember there was a book it was a long time ago, it was called What's the Matter with Kansas?
Mhm. Great book.
And yeah, and one of the central themes in that was that Democrats aren't trusted simply because they don't use this strong language. They don't take definitive stands, right? And where while Republicans have the perception of strength because they just like that's why Trump is perceived, even though he's weak, he's not very intelligent, he's horrible as a moral human being. He'll come out and just say whatever, like we obliterated Iran's nuclear program.
That's a very good Trump impression. Excellent.
Sometimes I do the hands if I do that,
It's
Julie.
very, very, very good.
It's I every time I hear his voice live, I have to mute it because it just infuriates me, you know? And I but the thing that kills me is in a lot of ways, like with Democrats, like with the Al Green, like the resolution with impeachment or, 128 crossed, right? Or they don't want to do these symbolic things like, well, and I'm used to be a uh, small c conservative Republican, right? And coming up, like that's what both my parents were,
Mhm.
was sort of that establishment Republican. And when I went to independent over the Iraq War, and then I became a Democrat in '06. And the thing that always infuriated me was it was just like, all right, cool. Republicans are doing this. Let's go out there and hit them in the mouth. Like, let's just freaking, no, they're wrong on this. This is BS, blah, blah, blah. Just go right at them. Well, we can't do that because we might alienate this person, or you can't do that because we might alienate this constituency. And then we gotta have a plan too. And it's just like, no, like that is the thing that infuriates me the most about the Democratic Party. Like I remember I wrote a few pieces on this about like with the trans stuff where you had like Sam Harris and all these people coming out saying, well, no, we got to back off like trans because that's alienating middle America and that's this and that's that. And my stance is like, no, you come out and say we're for civil rights for all.
Yep.
Full stop.
Yep.
That's it. And it's just like, well, I don't like I don't think trans people. It's like good for you. I'm for civil rights for all because if you don't have it for all, this is what happens. And you stand on the principle. And I think the problem that people have with Democrats, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I haven't done political consulting as long as you have, but it's like I think the problem is Democrats get in their way because they game this out and they're so terrified to lose, they keep themselves from winning instead of just going out there and hitting like because you have this disconnect, right? Where it's like the Republicans they're gonna kill democracy. They're gonna kill it. It's like, all right, man, let's go out and do so. Like, what do we need to do? Because I get asked that question all the time in lives and everything else. Like, what do we need to do? We got to stop them. Da da da. It's like, well, if we pass this one resolution that has this, and we make sure we get a quorum, and it's like, the actions are not matching up with the rhetoric, and that's
You're so right, and they're in this defensive crouch, and they're so busy chasing the mythical Liz Cheney voter. They're so
right.
busy chasing the mythical Republic. They're chasing you, right? The person who used to
Yeah.
be a conservative, who's now okay. Well, there's not many of you guys. Like they're
No,
not. It's actually going in the opposite.
I'm not conservative anymore.
No, but they're right. But they're chasing you 20 years ago. Like there's got to be a guy out there who's a conservative who's going to vote for us now. Like if you haven't noticed, it's actually going the other way. What they are doing in the process is alienating their own base. They're hemorrhaging Black men. They're
Yep.
hemorrhaging Latino voters, and it's no surprise because they're ignoring the base in order to chase some mythical, person that some consultant like me discovered in a focus group may be movable.
Yeah.
But it's absurd. That person doesn't exist, or if he exists, there's not many of them. There are very few of them. What there are a lot of are really angry Democrats who want somebody to stand up for the rule of law, who want somebody to stand up for the Constitution, and who have no incentive right now to support the Democrats in charge because they're not fighters.
Yeah.
And, look, I'll give you a great example. As I said, I live in New York. Chuck Schumer is my senator. Ideologically, I am much more in line with Chuck Schumer than I am with AOC. Much more. If there were a primary, I would vote for her. Why? I want somebody who's a fighter.
Yep.
The only people who are fighting right now, and this is a big problem for moderate Democrats, the only people who are fighting right now are Bernie Sanders, AOC, now Zoran Mamdani. I keep mispronouncing his name. I'm so sorry. Mamdani. I will get it right. People like that. And that's who's defining the party right now.
Yeah.
Well, then don't be surprised when the Democratic Socialists are the face of the Democratic Party. And don't be upset when that's used against you. If you want your views to be prominent, then use your power to do that. But they're not. They're hiding in this crouchy position. And it's not just because Chuck Schumer is old and he's been around for a really long time. Hakeem Jeffries is not old, and he hasn't been around that long. He had a really meteoric rise, and yet he's super cautious. And he's so afraid of his own shadow that he won't do anything. He was asked about whether Trump should have bombed Iran, and he wouldn't give an answer.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You have to give I don't care what the answer is, whatever it is, give it.
Yeah.
Give it. You're literally you're a leader. You want people to follow you. The whole point of being a leader is that there are people behind you following. That is what literally the definition of a leader. You're leading people, and yet he's not leading them. They're not leading them. There are a few senators out there. Somebody here in the chat mentioned Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy is a great leader. If I had to look at J.B. Pritzker in Chicago, in Illinois, great leader. But yet then you have people like Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey who runs down to Bedminster to meet with Trump.
Yep.
Because he decided that that's the best way to curry favor with a president who's notoriously vindictive and he wants to get money for his state. Well, guess what? He's going to screw you anyway, so you might as well stand up. Same thing with Gretchen Whitmer. I mean, she welcomed Trump to Michigan because he gave her some sort of air base that she wanted. Well, guess what? He's going to screw you every single day. And he's going to screw Michigan. And I hope it was worth it because you just gave him credibility and stood next to a guy that is shredding the Constitution in order to
and if you
get
had any
a little for what?
Yeah, if you had any presidential hopes or you had any thoughts of leading the party, forget it.
Forget it.
Yeah,
Forget it.
And it's so the old phrase, a chicken in every pot, right?
Yep, of course.
And so
Roosevelt.
there's that, right? So the thing that kills me is if somebody said to Democrats, "Hey man, people are hungry. run on the phrase "a chicken in every pot," right? These Democrats, the moderates, would find a way to say, "Well, now, while I think chicken's important, it's also not the only sustenance that you could
I know.
get. That you could also be vegan, and I don't want to, insinuate that."
I
And
don't
I
wanna
think,
offend the vegans. You're so
you know,
right. What a great analogy. I love
you
it.
know,
You're so right.
and I think sustenance is very important, and that's what makes America great, is because there's a lot of great restaurants that we all love to eat at, and and I have them too, and I hope you do. And then it's like, okay, how am I going to get fed though?
Yeah,
What's the plan to feed me and my family? Like what's like, well, when childcare is important. Okay, you know,
yeah.
it's the thing is why Mamdani, if I pronounce his name wrong, you know, is like, if the reason it works is because it's just like, you can come out and say, look, we're gonna give childcare options for every family that needs them, every working family in America. And people go, whoa, how are you gonna do that? Blah, 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 blah. You could say, we're gonna figure it out because we're Americans and this is what we do. You're gonna get elected. Like, because even if you get close to that, right? It's better than what it was. And I was talking with a buddy of mine, the thing that Democrats miss is they can't they do things, but they never point to, and they never say how they've made people's lives meaningfully better. You have to make voters' lives meaningfully better. And so, instead of just poo-pooing and say, well, he'll never get that, or they'll never do this, it's like, okay, you have food insecurity in New York City. That's a problem. It needs to not be a problem. All options are on the table. What are we going to do? Instead of debating those options, you set the goal and say, you know, people should have access to nutritious food. Full stop. We're going to make it happen. That's what the Democratic Party stands for in New York. Like, you're going to get people to get behind you, right?
You know, Trump said something, and I keep thinking about it because it was actually a really brilliant thing that he said, which you gotta give him credit where it's due.
Oh,
He said he could sell, right? I forgot who he was talking to, whether it was African American voters or Latino voters, but I think it was African American voters. Then he
mhm,
said, "What the hell have you got to lose?" And, you know, that's actually a kind of brilliant thing to say because
mhm,
people are pretty desperate. And their attitude is, "You know what? What the hell do I have to lose? Like, things suck now, so I'll give it a shot. Maybe it'll work out, but it can't get much worse," right? Well, lo and behold, of course, it is gonna get much worse under Trump.
right.
But at the time, it's a great selling tactic. And I think the problem with Democrats is you're so right, first of all, you know, every time I see a Democratic poll, it's always like, let's test the child tax credit. Let's test lowering the marginal tax rate or raising the marginal tax rate on millionaires and things like that are not tangible, right? Like, I don't instead of telling me about the child tax credit, which I don't know what the hell that means. Like, I'm not familiar with the tax code. I don't know what it means. I don't,
Mhm,
either I don't make enough money to have an accountant do my taxes, in which case it doesn't affect me, or I have an accountant do my taxes, in which case I don't even know about it because I pay somebody to worry about that, right? Like, these are not things that normal people think about and know about. What they do know about is if I have kids and you're going to give me free childcare, I can
mhm,
get behind that.
yep,
Or if I have kids and you're going to give me free universal pre K, I can get behind that.
yep,
Like, I get behind it. Or if you're doing a baby bond, which nobody knows what that means, but if that means you're going to give every single parent who has a child $1,000 to invest for that child at birth, I can get behind that. Like, all of these things are tangible. Whether they're realistic or not, they're tangible. And I can understand what you're talking about. And
mhm,
Democrats are just awful at it. They're
terrible.
awful at it. They get into the weeds. They start speaking in these kind of acronym weirdo terms. They
Mhm,
don't know what they're doing. The Biden White House was particularly awful at this. I mean, we passed a nearly $1 trillion infrastructure bill. Well, when people hear $1 trillion, their heads want to explode. You're spending $1 trillion of my taxpayer money and I don't know what it's on.
mhm,
Rather than saying, you know what? If you are living, and I'm going to make this up, in Northampton County, Pennsylvania, the swingiest county, the swingiest state in the nation. Um, I am going to repave Main Street in Hellertown, Pennsylvania, the swingiest town in Northampton County. And you don't have to worry about that pothole anymore in Hellertown because the money from Joe Biden, from this tax plan, from this infrastructure bill is going to go repave that road. People understand that rather than the whole $1 trillion plan, which means nothing. All it means is that you're spending a lot of my taxpayer dollars on something amorphous that I can't relate to.
Yeah. And and the other thing too is like, there's this notion that, you know, we're a big tent party. And I always hate that analogy because I refer to us as we're a lot of little tents on a big field. You know, the Republican is actually the big tent party where it's basically just get your ass in this tent. This is what you're going to do now. Right. We're very much like, we don't,
We're actually not a big tent party. Sorry to interrupt, but we're getting smaller and smaller. We are a
oh, yeah.
party of the white elites who are
Hmm.
rich and live on the coasts. And we are hemorrhaging people of color. And
Yep.
we're certainly have already lost working people. And we have long ago lost rural families. And so I don't know what big tent they're talking about. I live here, as I sit here in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, sure, everybody's a Democrat around me. But
Yeah.
that's a small part of the country, right? And if you're in LA or San Francisco, that too. But less and less everywhere else.
And I mean, the thing about it is like, you know, yeah, it's like you test these things of, okay, we have the top, we spent $1 trillion, we did this. Did my rent come down? No. Did the bus fare come down? No. Is there better infrastructure in whatever city I live where public transportation is better? No. And like, what have you done for me? Right? What have you done for, like it in that kind of simple terms? And the other thing is too is we don't push the party out to do that, right? Where you don't have Joe Biden saying to the rank and file Democrats, go to your districts, do town halls. We're going to spend money to knock on doors to tell these people, hey, this is what we did, right? We did this for you. You know, you don't see that. And part of that, I think, is the corporate media. But again, I think that we're like, to your point earlier, talking about Biden slapping his name on that bridge, right? We don't push these things out. Like, I think I almost took a picture of it. I was driving by. It's like I saw a sign of a bridge. It's like, this bridge brought to you by the Build Back Better Act. I'm like, oh my goodness, here's a sign out in the middle of the New Mexico desert. Where,
Okay, but
you know,
nobody knows what the Build Back Better Act is. How about
right.
this bridge brought to you by President Joe Biden and the Build Back Better Act?
Yep.
Right? Like, Trump would be slapping his name on. He slapped his name on checks. Remember those COVID relief
Yes.
checks? He slapped his name on that.
I
And
would,
people are
yes.
looking for solutions. I see this in the chat. People are looking for solutions. I'll give you just a few solutions right now. One, learn how to communicate.
Mhm.
It's not hard. Two, purge. I wouldn't say purge. I don't like that word. It's a bad word to use. Get rid of people who don't know how to fight, or at least replace them in leadership with people who know how to fight. Like,
Yeah.
Chuck Schumer's time in leadership should be up. It should be up. Because what Chuck Schumer should have done, the minute that Donald Trump started ignoring judicial orders, the minute he started sending people to prisons without and ignoring judges who did not turn that plane around, is Chuck Schumer should have shut down the Senate. He should
Mhm.
have said that Democrats will not participate. You will not have a quorum. We will shut down the workings of the Senate. Not one judicial nomination, not one hearing, nothing at all
Mhm.
until this president remembers that he is bound by the Constitution. And the fact that that didn't happen is a crime against the Constitution itself because that is what he's there for, to stand up. So that's two. Three, this is what Democrats don't do and have not done, and this is a much longer term project. But in 1973, Roe versus Wade was overturned. And even
Mhm.
before that, you had really in the 60s, this all started with Goldwater after he lost, but it really accelerated after Roe v. Wade. You
Mhm.
had GOPAC was created in, I believe, 1978, and it was an organization that basically exists to this day. It's incredibly effective. I actually know the Republican person who chairs it, and he's very good at what he does. Their job, and Newt Gingrich ran this, and Michael Steele, who's now, a Democrat and on MSNBC, but when he was a Republican, he chaired it.
Mhm.
They recruited legislative candidates, and they created a farm team to first take over state legislatures and then use those same people who are legislators as a farm team to then promote them to Congress. And then effectively, they're now all in Congress.
Mhm.
So that's why Democrats used to have the majority of state legislatures. Now Republicans do. And if you want to know why legislatures are important, we don't have a majority in the House right now because the North Carolina legislature gerrymandered the hell out of their congressional districts. And that's why, lo and behold, there are not any Democrats from North Carolina, despite the fact that there should be.
Yep.
There are Democrats, but not enough. And it goes on, right? Florida used to be a swing state. No more, it's Republican because of GOPAC, because they've invested in state parties, they've invested in state legislatures, they've invested in creating this farm team. So very, very, very important for Democrats to do the same. The Federalist Society on the judicial level, every single, until Trump just destroyed everything, but every single conservative judge was vetted by the Federalist Society,
Mm.
and that's incredibly key. They built a farm team. That is how they were able to take over most of the courthouses. And we used to have majorities, Democratic majorities on state Supreme Courts and state courts. Now we have Republican majorities. Sorry, that's my husband choking to death, apparently. Probably. Um, and so all of that is something that Republicans have put decades of work into.
Yeah.
We fall in love with
Yeah.
candidates. We see
Okay.
this great hope, right? Oh, Barack Obama is going to save us, or Bill Clinton's going to save us. We don't create organizations. We don't create we don't create institutions that survive regardless and irrespective of who is in office. They have, and that's why they're so successful.
Absolutely. Because part of when you had Kirsten Sinema getting out of line,
Yeah.
right? And if we'd have had those organizations, you could have put the thumb on her and been like, no,
Yeah.
huh? And so you're able to get a Mansion or a Cinema or someone that can hold up the works and mess up the party because they're at that point out for themselves. I mean, all politicians at some point are out for themselves, but there was a story like Arlen Specter told this when he transferred when he switched parties and he went from Republican to Democrat. I'll never forget it. And he was talking about, so they're going in for ACA, like the House had just passed it, public options in it, and so he's going into like his first meeting for this big piece of legislation, and he's saying, okay, so he's expecting them to be like Republicans, right? So he says, how are we gonna do this? And what he's asking them is, how are we going to push this for the president? How are we going to like spin this in the news? What's the messaging? And I think I think his name was either Bob or Ben Nelson in Nebraska. And he says,
Mhm.
I don't know if I am going to vote for this. And then Evan Bayh of Indiana, we had all the Southern kind of corporatist
Yeah.
Democrats who were like, oh, well, I can't vote for this how it is. And he was stunned because that didn't happen in the GOP. If that's what the president wanted, that's what you passed. Right. And that's why it's so hard, even to this day, when you have a lunatic at the head of their party, they're like, even though it would just destroy them in their
Yeah.
state,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, look, the problem is that um, you have senators like Susan Collins and Tom Tillis
Yeah.
who are in states that are endangered potentially for them, right? I mean, Maine, I believe, the last remaining Republican in Maine,
Mhm.
on a statewide level. Tom Tillis, who's in a purple state, and they're still falling in line. I mean,
Mhm.
they are, because for the most part, because they're afraid of him.
Mhm.
And they're afraid that if he tells the Republicans to stay home or they're going to get primaried, it's dispositive. They're going to lose, right? Like, if Tom Tillis, if Donald Trump said to North Carolina Republicans that he supports Jack Smith or whoever, Joe Blow, again, probably
Mm,
not Jack Smith, that's a bad name for him, but Joe Blow to run against Tom Tillis is dead. I mean, he's not winning. And
no.
so they've got to fall in line. Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, who's a pediatrician who literally made a career of vaccinating children, voted for RFK Jr. out of fear to save his career.
Yeah.
I mean, threw away everything he's ever believed.
Mhm.
And yet, Democrats, on the one hand, it's great that we don't have this cult of personality, and I think it's healthy. I mean, it's not healthy for the country to have this kind of cult of personality. But on the other
No.
hand, something that I think is incredibly dangerous is that they have institutions that keep them in line. And I
Nice.
don't think my husband realizes that I have this mic that picks up everything, so I apologize again.
Okay. I'm just kinda curious what he did. He's like,
I don't know. He's like, "Whoa, I don't know." I think he's trying to do the dishes, but I'm not really sure. Anyway, so that's that I think is part of the problem.
yeah. No, I think you're right. I like, one of the hardest, like, and that's one of the hardest things is I think maybe a way to kinda combat that is, I don't know, I thought maybe it needs to be more of, like, sort of principles people can get behind, like, sort of just saying, "Hey, we're Democrats, we stand for this." But maybe, I mean, maybe to your third point, that's more of what we need to build is basically organizations that can put the pressure on politicians and hold them accountable. I think that's the more difficult thing. Um, because it's disheartening when you have, Chuck Schumer go, "You don't have the votes to pass this bill." Okay, well, we're gonna put it up anyway. We're gonna cave. Yeah, so
Chuck Schumer caved. I mean, if you remember, Chuck Schumer enabled that bill to go through a few months ago.
yeah,
And this whole notion of we don't have the votes, well, you have other things. Shut it down.
yeah,
Shut it down. Filibuster I mean, listen, it's been a very long time. I used to work in the Senate. It's been a very, very long time. I don't remember my Senate rules as I should, because I worked there even prior to 9/11. But actually, I was there on 9/11. But uh, what I would say is there are obscure Senate tactics where you could really slow down and gum up the
mhm,
works in the minority and dare them to get rid of the filibuster. Just do it. If that's what they
yeah,
wanna do, go ahead, because one day the shoe's gonna be on the other foot. They're very nervous about doing it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But ultimately, if if you're just gonna say, "Well, we can't do anything about it," so, I mean, people want a fighter, like, you gotta fight.
yeah,
You gotta fight. And this whole notion of preemptive surrender because you don't think you're going to win, so you might as well just not even try, then what are you there for? Like,
right.
why do you expect people to follow you into battle if you won't fight yourself?
Exactly. What I would have loved to have seen when Cory Booker broke Strom Thurmond's record for the talking filibuster is like, okay, just have other Democrats going right behind him and just keep, 4, 6, 8, 10 hours and just keep going. Just
Yeah,
keep going.
yeah,
Keep tagging in. It's like, hey, you got the floor. It's like, boom, you know, and do it for days. And then you have people out in the hallway. To your point, why are you doing this? Well, we have a president that doesn't want to follow the rule of law. He doesn't care about due process. He's deporting people unlawfully. Like, and once he stops doing that, we'll yield the floor so business can
yeah,
continue.
100%. I mean, there's so many things you could do, and you don't have to pull a 25-hour filibuster like Booker did.
Mhm.
But as you said, you can do something along those lines. There are other things. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, the filibuster was performative. I'm glad Corey did it.
Sure.
But there are other things you can do that aren't as physically painful as standing up there for 25 hours and dreaming of having a catheter. So um, which he did not. But it, look, what Booker did brought attention
Yeah.
to the matter,
Mhm.
and people like Chris Murphy, I think, are working very hard to bring attention to certain things, but that's not enough. That's
Mhm.
not enough because they're not in leadership. Corey's in leadership as a communicator, but they're not communicating well. And look, God bless Cory Booker. He's a friend and he's a former client, so I know him well. Cory Booker is a happy warrior.
Mhm.
Cory Booker is a ultimately a consensus builder, um, and that's wonderful. He's a wonderful human being. He really is a very, very good man. But at a moment like this, I don't know if that's what you require. I think what you require is a fighter.
Yeah.
You require somebody with brass knuckles. You require somebody eh, when they go low, you go lower.
Yeah.
And I see here that somebody here is saying Cory Booker's a traitor. I assume it's because he voted for Charlie Kushner. I agree with you. I'm disappointed in that vote. They have a very
Yeah.
close personal relationship. It doesn't matter. I agree, but that's a good example of you don't vote for Charlie Kushner. I'm
Right.
sorry, and I say that as somebody again who worked with Booker, got up through his first 2 Senate races, um, and really really likes him on a personal level. But that's a really good example of you say to Charlie Kushner, "You know what, Charlie? I'm sorry. I just can't deliver this one for you.
Yeah.
Can't do it."
No, and it's you we need to stand on business, right? And I mean, here's the thing. I say this is like you look at Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney,
Yep.
right? And he doesn't pound the podium, right? He doesn't yell and scream. He's not mean. He's deliberate, right? And I jokingly say the guy's a killer, man, because it's like he's just like, we're doing this. And that's it. Yeah. And we don't have that, like, we need more of that with Democrats, you know. Like to your point, it's like, you know, yeah, man, you may hit me with brass knuckles, but I'm gonna make you pay for it, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit you in the mouth. Yeah, I'm not gonna yell at you. I'm not gonna scream. I'm not gonna rant, rave. I ain't gonna call you names. But you're not getting through me. It's the deliberateness that we, and it's it's like you said. Hey, sorry, Kirst, I can't do that for you, man. Like I'm just it's a
Yeah,
new day.
and by the way, Donald Trump is fundamentally a bully. I mean, that's all he is, and how do you treat bullies? You punch them in the mouth.
Right.
You just do. And,
Mhm.
you know, if you're gonna sit there and still think it's 1995 and you've got Robert's Rules of Order and you're gonna treat this like the comedy that you used to have, it doesn't exist anymore. I mean,
No.
as I said, I got my start. I worked on the Hill at a time when you did have that kind of comedy. It wasn't as great as it was apparently in the 80s. I mean, Newt Gingrich kind of screwed it up when he came into power,
Mm,
but you still had a modicum of understanding
mm.
and respect and rules, and things just weren't done because they
Yeah.
just weren't done. That's out the window.
Yeah.
There's no bottom now.
Yeah.
And this, uh, you gotta get in the mud with a pig,
Yeah.
and you are. You have to, and you gotta beat the pig. You you have to do that too.
Yeah.
A
Or you could clean up the pig pit after you pull them out.
after you kill him.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's we have like again, we're bad at communicating because what we do communicate doesn't match our actions. You know, it's like Schumer, if you're going to say you don't have the votes, then stand on business. Then say you are not going to get a single Democratic vote in the Senate. Maybe you get I'm trying to think John, what's his name from Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, maybe he goes rogue.
Fetterman, yeah.
If Fetterman goes rogue and like he does what he does, all right, fine. But you don't release it. You say I'm not putting it out less than the 60 threshold. So that's it. You know, and you just tell you tell the rest of the team is like, hey, you vote for this, I ain't backing you. You know, I'm gonna take it out of your hide.
Yeah, and look, ultimately, I think the problem that you're dealing with is that they're just not willing to remind themselves that they're living in Trump's America where the rules have gone out the window. They're just gone. They're just gone.
Yeah.
And if they're just to bring it full circle from where we started, if yesterday what happened in New York was not a wake-up call to them,
Huh.
to make them understand how frustrated Democrats are, that they're looking for a fighter, that they will
Yes.
not follow them where they want to go, that in fact, their endorsement of a candidate makes it less likely that rank and file Democrats will endorse a candidate. I mean, what a repudiation.
Oh, yeah.
What a repudiation. And the same people who keep telling us to just trust them all the time are not delivering. We trusted them into losing the White House. We trusted them into losing the Senate. We trusted them into losing the House. We trusted them into having a 6-3 Supreme Court majority for Republicans.
Mhm.
We trusted them into having governors across the country get elected as Republicans
Mhm.
and state legislatures overwhelmingly controlled by Republicans. I mean, how much more do we have to lose by trusting them? There's
Yep.
not much left.
No.
And yet they still ask us to trust them.
Yeah. And the sad part is you look at what Americans want, poll after poll, it lines up with what the Democrat side. The problem is we don't come out and say, we're going to this. We're definitively going to do it. And then pushing for that. And and you're right. It's like, it feels like an establishment, like Democrat gives you a endorsement. It's like the kiss of death. Yeah. It's just like, okay.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and, and then they start with the constant fundraising for what? Like, honestly, why would you give a penny to the DNC right now?
No, I'm
What,
not.
no, I know you wouldn't, but I mean, like,
Oh, yeah.
why would anybody? Why? What are they going to do
Yeah.
with that money? The infighting, the constant infighting, rather than fighting Republicans, they're fighting with each other.
Yep.
And again, I
Yep.
keep saying the people who are actually going out there sticking it to the Republicans are Bernie Sanders and AOC and Democratic Socialists. And then they're going to wake up and complain that I can't believe our party was hijacked by this extremist left wing part of the party, according to them. Well,
Yeah.
the reason for that is because they're doing something and you're doing nothing.
Yep.
So if
Nothing.
you don't want them to be the face of the party, then wake up and you become the face of the party because right now the way you're the face of the party is you're losers.
Or if you're not going to go out and hit him in the mouth, at least back up the people that are doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, because like I would be fine if Chuck Schumer was like, listen, I got the reading glasses. I'm gonna go ahead and just
Yeah.
I'll help you with the legislation. I'll rally the votes behind the scenes. Y'all go out there, Chris Murphy. Y'all go out there and you punch every day, punch, and then I'll make sure I'm logistics and support behind you, right? And then we as a party can take power and do some good, you know. And that's what I don't. That I think if that's one thing is like that's the thing I don't understand is I you know I I I I I don't care what your stats say on a losing team. I want to be on the winning team. You know, like that's the time and time again. And I get it. They have their little power base. They've got their donors. They've got their. It's like I get it, but or maybe it's something as simple as they think they're so insulated and they've been there so long. They think they're right. And what they're doing is that's the right way. Everyone else is wrong. I'm right. You know?
Well, look, I mean, even today, if you saw what was going on in the New York tabloids, you've got all of these Wall Street people who are suddenly panicking now because you've got Mamdani. God.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
The Z Man.
the Z
You know?
Man, exactly. I want to be respectful of him and not call him by his first name, but
How long do you think it'll take before they do the Adam Sandler, the Zohan clips that start doing that? Yeah.
Yeah. But, they're all panicking now. Wall Street, oh my God, what are we going to do? Bill Ackman and all of these, all of these other people who donated tremendous amounts of money to Cuomo are now like, oh, we're going to do, we have to support Eric Adams, who, P.S., is basically now a Trumper and is spending all his time on the Fox and Friends couch. And we got to do this because we can't have this socialist. We can't have this people who's going to, is going to raise taxes on all of us. And we got to save New York City and so on and so forth. Well, you probably should have thought about that before supporting Andrew Cuomo. Because in a city of 9 million people, I am certain that they could have found somebody else who was not Andrew Cuomo to get behind. But they have such
Yes.
little credibility that the more that they get behind Eric Adams, the more it helps Mamdani.
Yeah. And all they had to do was look to, and I had friends that were deep in the Virginia race when the establishment Dems ran Terry McAuliffe against Glenn Youngkin.
Of course.
And they couldn't figure out, like, it's like, well, it's like the parents are, they're bigoted or they don't understand about school choice and da da da. Yeah, but they voted for him
Yep.
because Terry McAuliffe didn't want to offend anybody, and he came across as an empty suit.
Well, and Terry McAuliffe comes out of that wing, right? Where Terry
Yep.
McAuliffe, look, Terry McAuliffe was a successful governor of Virginia, and
Hmm.
then he left, and then he tried to come back. And
Yep.
the reality is, you got to know when to get off the stage.
Hmm.
Terry McAuliffe's time was over. It
Yep.
was done. And Terry McAuliffe has had an incredibly successful career well before he ran for public office, but it's
Hmm.
over. Go back and make money, God knows, whatever you want to do.
Hmm.
And look, the problem is that none of these people know when to get off the stage.
Yep.
And Schumer's been around too long. And Nancy Pelosi, who's still pulling the strings, who I have a tremendous amount of admiration for. She was a great speaker, but
Yeah.
she needs to get off the stage. And they're blocking voices like Jasmine Crockett's from running the oversight committee because she's too abrasive and she takes it to the Republicans too much. Well, are you kidding me? What do you want in that job?
Yeah.
In the same way they blocked AOC from taking that spot
I
and all
remember
through their
that.
support behind Jerry Connolly. Jerry Connolly was dying. Jerry Connolly was in his 70s and he was dying.
If
And
there's not,
they still gave it to him because poor Jerry Connolly deserved it and he's sick and we got to do this for Jerry Connolly. Well, I'm sorry, it's not about Jerry Connolly. It's about the
no,
country. It's
right.
about what's best for the country. And what's best for the country is to have the best communicator in the House have the spot that she wanted to take it to the Republicans in the Oversight Committee every day, and that would have been AOC. She didn't run again. Jasmine Crockett ran this time. They gave it to Robert Garcia, I believe his first name is Robert. He's 46 years old. I'm very glad that they have a young person in charge. But
Yeah.
Jasmine Crockett is viral. She is so good.
Yeah.
She is so good. And yet
Yeah.
they did everything they could to block her, so she ultimately didn't even bother running. And it's crazy. It's insane. Why don't you elevate these people? They're great communicators. They don't want to elevate them because they are too worried about them being abrasive. Nobody likes an abrasive woman. Well, why not? Why not?
Right.
Because I was at an event. I was at the Webbies. I don't know if you know the Webby Awards. I
Oh
was at
yeah.
the
Oh yeah. Another ways. Yeah.
yeah. So I was at the Webbies last month, I guess. Jasmine Crockett walked in to get an award. The entire place stood up and gave her a round of applause that nobody else at the Webbies got. Nobody else. And they had tremendous celebrities there. And she got this incredible round of applause. Why? Because everybody knows who she is. She's a member of Congress from Texas. How many members of Congress can you name? Can anybody name? And yet everybody there knew who she was. And this is not a political crowd.
I would be lucky. I mean, and I follow politics. I've followed it for over 20 years. I'd be lucky to name 25, 30 reps of the
You know who
Democratic
she
Party
is.
off the top of my head. Oh, I know, absolutely. If you say, like, you know, who are the biggest fighters in the House, is Jasmine Crockett and
Yeah.
AOC.
Yeah.
Like, the
And
first two are gonna be women,
both
and
of them got screwed. And both of them got screwed.
yeah,
And it's such a shame because the reality is that they are both excellent communicators. I mean, excellent communicators. And that's what you need right now. And why are you shutting down people who are excellent communicators? Now, somebody here said ask Hillary and Kamala. Hillary was not a great communicator. She wasn't.
Yeah,
And she had a lot
yeah,
of baggage, and she was not the right, Hillary. I love Hillary Clinton from a policy perspective. She was right about everything. She was not the right candidate to run. Kamala, who knows? Because Kamala was kind of anointed, right?
yeah.
Kamala
Kamala, yeah, and they gave her a really short runway. I mean, it was
gave
just,
her
it
a
was,
very short runway. I mean, Kamala was
yeah,
set up for failure. I feel bad, she was really set up for failure.
yeah,
But but here you have women who, and I'm not just saying this because 'cause they're women, I mean, they're just excellent communicators, just really good. Chris Murphy's an excellent communicator. He's a man, right? Somebody like that, but
yeah.
they're not being elevated.
No, mm-mm. And it's that. I mean, it's interesting because it's like I remember watching like Michael Steele on some of these shows, and he's like saying Democrats need to do this, this, and this, and I'm like, somebody listen to this man because
He's
he
very
got
good.
tons of Republicans elected.
Yeah, he's very good. He's very,
After
very
they
good.
got wiped out by Obama, and I mean, it's like they tapped him to come on in, right? And yeah, not for nothing. Yeah, it's the Republicans are desperate if they tap a black dude to run their party. I'm just gonna keep it real. Stuart Stevens wrote a book on it. You can check it out. Like,
Yeah.
it's no secret. You know, it's called Southern Strategy.
Yep.
So, you know, um, so
Yeah, I mean,
Lee Atwater. Google Lee Atwater.
Lee Atwater was very good at what he did. Quite
Yep.
quite evil, may he rest in peace, but very good at what he did.
Did a deathbed confession.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh,
you know,
well,
it's,
too little, too late on that one.
yeah.
But look, the problem is that they don't seem to learn from all these mistakes. They just don't. And they should have learned. There's so many flashing red signs. There's so many flashing red signs over and over and over again. There's so many canaries in the coal mine, and yet this New York race yesterday was a canary in the coal mine, and they don't see it. And AOC beating Joe Crowley was a canary in the coal mine, and they don't see it. And Donald Trump winning and appealing to a large portion of the Democratic base, they don't see it. And
Mhm.
this consistent belief that if we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, we'll have a different result. It's just crazy. I mean, you can't live like this. It's just you can't continue this way.
I'm very pragmatic, sort of like I'm one of these very I feel like I'm one of these rare people in politics where I'm very pragmatic. Like I understand incrementalism. I understand, uh voting for a party over just like I'm not a single issue voter. I'm tired of carrying water for the or for the Democrats. I'm tired of it because it's this you won't how I can't keep carrying water for you if you won't fight. At this point it's who's going to listen to me, right? When I'm trying to get you hyped up for Democratic candidates.
You know, I did a congressional primary maybe about 10 years ago,
Mhm.
and I remember working really hard on it. And the candidate was not working that hard.
Mhm.
And I turned to somebody else that I was working on that campaign on, and I said, you can't want it more than the principal. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't want it more than the principal. And she lost, as she should have, because she didn't deserve to win.
Mhm.
And that has always kind of stayed with me. You cannot want it more than the principal on
Mhm.
anything, right? I mean,
Mhm.
whether it's personal relationships or political relationships or anything else, you can't want it more than the person you're trying to help.
Right.
And, you can't tell somebody to go to rehab when they have a problem, and you can't want them to go to rehab and get better more than they want to get better themselves. And it's the same kind of thing here. You can't rehab the Democratic leadership if the leadership does not want to be rehabbed.
Yeah. I
So all we can do is bring attention to it. All we can
Mhm.
do is urge people to vote against Donald Trump because ultimately this future of the republic is at stake. All we can do is hope that enough people vote against him and understand that right now the party as a whole is not giving people much of a reason to vote for it.
Yeah.
Individual candidates might, and they deserve to win. But I really hope before 2026, the party gives somebody a reason to vote for it, not just against Trump.
I'm really hoping for a Tea Party style movement um, with the Democratic Party. It's going to take longer because the Tea Party with the Republicans was astroturf and had big money, which unfortunately for progressives and the we don't like billionaires aren't tripping over themselves to give us money so they could pay more
Right.
taxes,
Yeah.
even though they should, because it's just you're fighting this hard to against a 2% tax increase, you know. But
Yeah. Listen, a Tea Party's fine on the one hand. On the other hand, it's a little dangerous because it results in Donald Trump. That's the
yeah,
apotheosis of ultimately what ends up happening. So I don't know that we need a Tea Party. I think what we need is the base is here, right? We're
yeah,
all here. I mean, I haven't spoken to anybody out in the trenches who either is an influencer or is just a normal rank and file person who isn't ready for a change.
yeah,
It's dislodging these people. I mean, it's dislodging these ineffectual leaders.
yeah,
And it's making it clear to them that either they get in line and start fighting or they're gonna have to go. I mean, what else can you say? And as much as we're gonna waste money in primaries, as much as we're gonna waste money in fighting, I don't know what else needs to happen to make these people understand.
yeah. I'm right there with you. I mean, it's I'm tired of carrying water for establishment Dems. Like even just online, it's like if you mess up, it's like you know, uh,
Yeah.
it's like you need to get primaried. You know, I don't like everything like say David Hogue said, but I agree with him. It's like, yeah, we need prime. Like the DNC is like you get somebody like Jamie Harrison, or you, like they're it's a constant rotation of, hey, let's put this chair in here who can't do anything,
Well, the
or
DNC, the DNC's job is fundamentally financial in that they should fund state parties, they should build up state parties, they should um, create, raise money for databases and things like that. They're not a messaging apparatus. They're just
yeah,
not. The people who are the messaging apparatus are the leaders
yeah,
because they have platforms to do that. And I don't really care what Ken Martin has to say about anything or Jamie Harrison has to say about anything. I what I care about is Ken Martin sending money to the Colorado, for example,
yeah,
Democratic Party to
which is
make
one, yeah,
which and make sure that it's not spent on consultants lining their own pockets, which is exactly what state parties tend to spend money on, but is actually spending money on registering voters and reaching out to them and so on and so forth. I mean, that's the key goal of what the state party should be doing. It's the goal of what the DNC should be doing.
hmm
But in terms of messaging and in terms of being the standard bearer, it's not Ken Martin. It's Chuck Schumer and it's Hakeem Jeffries and it's people like that. And people, if they're not capable of doing it, empowering people who are good messengers, whether it's AOC, whether it's Jasmine Crockett, not keeping them down because they're too abrasive or they offend too many people. Do you think Donald Trump cares a rat's ass, excuse my language, about offending anybody?
I'm offended you just cursed.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's the problem. That is where we are, my
Right.
friend.
Yeah. No. You know what? That's a very good point. Um, I totally agree. We've gone about an hour. So I listen, I really appreciate you. I definitely want to do this again.
For sure.
Yeah, like it's been awesome.
I gotta
Um,
have you on my podcast. We're gonna do that next.
yes, like let's
Awesome.
do it.
We're gonna
I
do it.
I've done I've done pieces about Iran, talks lately because I'm very much one of these people that was, all the never Trumpers rushed to give Donald Trump. Well, this is actually a good thing. I'm like, no, that wasn't a good thing. You know,
Oh, we gotta have a whole separate podcast on that one because I was actually in Israel when those missiles started falling.
Oh my
So
god.
I lived
Were
I
you?
lived yes, I had to make my own way with my family through southern Israel to the Egyptian border, walk across the border, and then hire some Bedouin to drive us for 4 hours, just the southern tip of the Sinai Peninsula so we could get out and go to London and get a flight back home there. But I say this all because the reason we had to do all of that is because I reached out to the American embassy in Israel and was told, and I quote, "We are not assisting Americans in getting out, and we are closed."
I was furious about that.
They were closed. They
I
were
was
closed.
Oh, yeah. So that was you're talking about this last time, like this just
I'm talking
recently.
about 10 days ago.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I meant. Wow, yeah.
Yeah,
Because that I remember I posted a note about that. I was like, "Yeah, this is how much the, Marco Rubio and the Trump regime cares about American citizens." China got
don't
their
care.
people out. Yeah, they just said,
Oh,
"Oh, yeah,
China got
here."
their people out, Albania, I mean, you name the country,
Everybody.
everybody except us, except
Right.
us. I mean, somebody here said, "You're right, you have the connections and the money to get out." You're absolutely right. I'm very lucky that I had the connections and the money to get out because the reality is if I had neither, I'd still be there right now. It's
Yep.
awful, and I've spoken
Oh,
to people
that's
who are there. It's awful. Okay,
I'm
on
glad.
that note, it was so great to see you, thank
Yes.
you so much for having me. I really,
Yeah,
really
let's
appreciate
do
it.
it again for
For
sure.
sure. All right. Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Julie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.